In Walmart's Who'Knewville, everyone ready their cart. Amazing Black Friday deals are about to start. Online and in the app, such great deals to explore. Everything you love from tech, toys, and more. The days to save and the ones to remember. It's only the 25th to the 30th of November. Set your alarms. Don't miss out. These deals are epic, without a doubt. The Who's are all ready, but are you? Walmart Black Friday deals await. Who knew?
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. Black Friday Game Day on Prime is an epic day of live sports. It all starts at 9 a.m. Eastern with the Capital One Skins game. Then, Black Friday football returns when the Bears take on the Eagles at 3 p.m. And it culminates with the final night of Emirates NBA Cup Group play with Bucks Knicks at 7 p.m. and Mavs Lakers at 10 p.m. Black Friday Game Day, only on Prime.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
I'm Gary Birtles, one of the old gits from a long time ago. You've got to tune into Tricky Talks, I believe, so just do it. All the best.
Robertson, the first time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robertson do. And still Robertson, getting his shot in, and a goal! Robertson!
Hello, welcome along to the Tricky Talks podcast as Forest comfortably beat Malmo 3-0 to take a step nearer qualifying for the next phase. We'll talk over that, plus take a quick look at the game against Brighton on Sunday. Here with me to discuss all of that is Kate. How are you doing today?
I'm feeling pretty comfortable. It's the word of the week, is it not? Comfortable? Yeah.
It is, yeah. It's always nice to hear that. We all agree Forest on Magic because we only play that on the back of a win and we've played it quite a lot lately, so it's always nice to hear that. Here also is Mollo. Nice to see you at the game last night, Mollo.
Good to see you too. Yeah, good to see you too. And once you've been to A Block, you never go back, so I look forward to seeing you there again.
Absolutely. We shall be back at the next available opportunity, I'm sure. And we have a special guest this week with Chelsea not available. George has stepped up from the bench. Welcome, George. You are part of the famous club, I believe. And also, more importantly, perhaps, is you're part of the Sky Sports Fanalyst team along with Kate. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. And I'm glad I came in after a win. I normally get the 0-0 or something. So it's nice to make my debut after a decent game anyway. Absolutely. Yeah, let's get straight onto the game then. Obviously, beforehand, they honoured the Miracle Men on the pitch alongside the equivalent team from Malmo. And we'll start with you, Kate, because I know you were really close to that when the players came out, given that you sit in the family stand. I missed it because I was late. I know, George, you missed it because you were late, you were saying, and Mollo, obviously from A Block, sits a little bit further away. But what did you make of the guys when they came on?
I think the whole pre-match thing that they did was absolutely class. So I was watching it live on YouTube before we left, them all arriving on the red carpet, the interviews that they were doing, the welcoming the Malmo team from 79 as well and talking to some of them. That was absolute quality. Really enjoyed watching that, really got you in the mood. And then, when we got there, I think the overriding thing is that they all just were having a great time. You know, all the stuff that they were talking about beforehand. And then when they got on, like I got a great picture of them having a really nice big hug and smiling at each other in the background. And it just felt really genuinely warm and authentic. And they were just celebrating what is for all of them from what they've said, you know, the pinnacle of their career, and it was just being recognised, you know, at this in the new world of Forest Malmo 2025, and yeah, just they really enjoyed it, really respectful of the players that had passed away as well. They all got a mention, and of Robertson who's poorly, but it just came across that they're still a really close knit group of blokes that see each other and speak to each other and reminisce. So, and I just think that all came across really, really beautifully.
Yeah, I want to talk about the tifo that Forza Garibaldi laid on, because that was awesome. That was one of my favourites of all of the tifos that they've put on, and they've done a great job over the years of producing some really good ones, haven't they, Molo? From where we were in A Block, it was a tremendous view, and the little bit of extra thing that I liked was the Clough and Taylor one in the Brian Clough stand, to almost replicate what was going on at the match, where you had the tifo behind the goal, and then Clough and Taylor sat off to the side.
Oh, it was magnificent, and they have. You're right. They've done some amazing tifos. I look forward to. They usually release a YouTube video with the story behind it all, and I know the story's obvious, but I love the detail. I love the newspaper headlines on the back of that, and and Francis scores. Absolutely brilliant, and hats off to them. You know, what they do is fantastic, and long may it continue, and I hope they can afford to keep going, and we'll see how we go. But it added to it, and it was magnificent. And, you know, just to round it off, and all that was happening, and then A Block singing Champions of Europe, You'll Never Sing That, just to round it off, was just comical in a in a good way. It wasn't meant nasty, was it? It was just really funny.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Malmo fans at the end, actually, because I've got a few things to say, and I know you have as well, Kate, on that. But, George, just want to ask you, given that you're much, much younger than us three, and obviously the European Cup wins were way, way, way before your time. It was just around the time when certainly Molo and I were just about old enough to appreciate it back then. What is your opinion of that era? Because clearly you weren't around when that was all happening. Do you get a sense of how important that was to the club, and how important it still is to the club, even to this day?
Yeah, I just think it's been set in the club's DNA that is so important to who we are and who we became. And it was actually quite nice and fitting that in our first season back in Europe for 30 years, we're playing against the team that put us on the map in Europe, because it put Nottingham on the map, not just Forest. You know, you went around Europe and you still do, and everybody says Robin Hood. But since we went to Munich and Madrid and won 2 European Cups, suddenly Nottingham Forest also in the equation. So yeah, then 2 stars on our badge as well, you know, to display that everywhere we go and see that we've won 2 European Cups. It will never be forgotten. And my kids, their grandkids, will still know that 100 years ago, that football club won this European Cup. So I just love that it won't be forgotten, and it truly won't be, you know, even when everybody is sadly gone from that era, it'll live on forever. And I hope it does, because it's such a special achievement.
It is, and that's primarily why we used the 2 goals from those 2 finals within our intro, because it not only represents the 2 stars, it also kicked off the history of this club, didn't it, Molo? And like I said, it was almost like it was the beginning of our fandom, wasn't it? And it was very relevant to us growing up as supporters.
Massively, you know. I didn't know John Robertson's name was John Robertson for a long time. I thought his name was Skin Him Robbo, because that's all he ever used to shout and used to do. I think a massive shout out here to Johnny Owen, putting together the most incredible football film that's ever been made, ever. I sat my daughter down, made her watch it many years ago, not knowing the impact that would have, which we all know now. You're right. You know, we grew up in an era. It sounds nuts, doesn't it? My first interest in football was just before Forest won the league. Then we won the league. I had this poster on my wall. Then we won the European Cup. Then we won it again. Can you imagine saying that? And I just assumed we were going to keep winning it back then, because I was only about 8 or 9 years old. Who are we going to beat this year? So, but it is, you know, the longer time goes on, the more incredible you realise that achievement was. I know money's taken over to an extent now, and it's probably going to be very, very difficult for any team to replicate. And certainly Malmo's achievement of getting to the final as a Swedish champions. What people forget, or Forest fans don't, is every game we played was against either a champion of another country or champions of Europe. You know, now when you've got I know the Premier League's very strong and we've got 4 or 5 strong teams in it, but some of the other, Scotland have got a team in it and they're garbage, aren't they? So it's that kind of thing. And it's set the sad thing is, from our point of view, it felt like when you look at it, things can only go downhill, but they're not. And as I keep repeating, and I said the other day on the radio, we are living in the good old days now. I say to Ellie all the time, and younger folk like George, when you hear people talk about the good old days, just remember you're living in yours right now. So really enjoy them, and with phones and everything, take it all in, photos, videos, whatever. Magnificent.
And can I just say, the importance of that film, I think, can't be underestimated for people of my age. I'm a year younger than Ellie, so I knew about the history. But once I actually got to watch that film and see everybody involved, suddenly I took such an interest to it. And now I can rattle off every player that played in that final. I know Chris Woods, who used to be the old goalkeeper. I didn't really have that much of an interest in it. Obviously I knew the history, and I don't know how. Maybe I was 7 or 8 when the film came out. But watching that made me realise the magnitude of our football club. And then a few months later, my mum took me to what she thought was an art gallery, an art exhibition it's near Nottingham College. And below it was like a premiere for the event or something promoting it. So it turned into me going and meeting John Robertson and Gary Birtles. And at the time, I had an afro and I had a very high-pitched voice because I was young. And John Robertson thought I was a girl. But the fact he said, "Thank you, young lady," when I took a selfie with him, it did not matter because I was just so in awe of him and in awe of what I was being around. So the importance of that film can't be underestimated. And I think everybody, especially who's been on the journey recently and who, like me and Ellie, grew up with Forest being a mid-table championship team, I think we do realise that this is our golden generation. And I was a bit flat last night because I just felt the stadium was a bit flat compared to what I wanted. I was thinking, it's a midweek. We'll probably get onto that later, but it was a midweek tie. 4 years ago, that was against Preston. Now we've won 3-0 at home against Malmo in the Europa League, and it just felt a bit flat for me. But I'll never get lost on how important this era is, and certainly how much that one meant.
Yeah, let's talk about the game in a second. Sorry, go on,
just
Kate.
Before we leave it, sorry, this is like a love fest for the Miracle Man, isn't it? But I watched it not that long ago with my 10-year-old who was desperate to watch it. And as I've probably mentioned on here before, I also coach his little Sunday team of 10-year-olds. And he absolutely loved watching it. And now, when he wants to know if he's doing well or if I think he needs to do something different, he'll look over to me and he'll go, huh? Huh? Because that's what he wants. He wants the Cluffy to know whether or not I think he's doing well or whether he's got something to work on. And it's a little thing, but what a great intergenerational thing that has become.
Love that.
I know what you mean, because when Trevor Francis nods in at the back post, you've almost got Cluffy on the sideline trying to nod it in as well, haven't you? Do you remember?
Yeah.
And that has stayed with me as well. So every time I'm watching a game and there's somebody at the back post, I'm doing that, trying to header it in as well. And that stems from that clip. And it's just stayed with me. In the final nod to that game, of course, the team wore all red tomorrow. And when yesterday, I absolutely loved it. Seeing a slightly changed colour strip, I thought it looked really nice at home. And it got me thinking, I don't remember, there was only one other time I remember where Forest tweaked their kit or changed their kit for a home game, and there's only that one instance. Can you remember? George, you won't know, I don't think, but Mollo might know. Kate, do you know the game I'm talking about where they had to change their kit for a home game?
Socks.
It was their full kit, as far as I can recall. They wore their away yellow strip at home against Barcelona in the Super Cup. There was a rule back then which meant that when you were at home, you had to wear your away kit, because when Forest went to the new camp, they wore their home strip and Barcelona wore their away kit.
What kind of rules that?
I have no idea, and I've not seen it since. And obviously Forest haven't been in the Super Cup, and that hasn't been a two-legged game for a while. But I do remember Charlie George scored in that game at home, didn't he? And I remember a picture of him at the City Ground wearing a yellow kit. But I don't recall any other game since then where they've changed their kit at home. You mentioned socks, Mollo.
In my head, there's a game where we had to change our socks because of a referee moaning about the other team wearing red and white striped socks or something. But that would have to be checked by a much bigger geek than me.
Yeah. Anyway, let's crack on and talk about the game then. A comfortable 3-0 win. Was it the perfect result, George, in your eyes? Or are we being a little bit picky in the fact that on another day they could easily have scored more Were you happy with 3-0, given how important goal difference might be when it comes to qualifying for the next phase? Or are you in the camp where they could have scored or should have scored more?
You know what, I was perfectly happy with it. Because as well, I think the whole factor of the game, with it being Malmo, I think genuinely nobody wanted to go and batter Malmo 7 or 8-0 because of the history of the game. I think everyone was happy with the 3-0. I think it was so important that we just came away unscathed, and it was so nice to see 90 minutes where we didn't have to worry. Even the Leeds game, we went behind and obviously came back and stuff like that. We were expected to go into Malmo and take control and beat them, and it looked quite rigid to start with because of the changes. But we had played long to start with and slowly started to get those connections, and then obviously scored the goal. It's quite similar to Anfield, actually. Once we scored the goal, we really settled and really looked like we were in our flow. And yet it was just so nice to have no worries for 90 minutes and to think, actually, Forest are so in control here. I think defensively they were absolutely superb. I mean, the stats speak for themselves. We don't really need to say they had one shot on goal that was straight under John's neck after the 7th minute. They didn't get... I mean, there's a stat they didn't even get into our box. They barely got into our final third. I mean, or half. It was just so completely brilliant from Forest. And it was the performance that we've been expecting. Like, you know, when we went away at Graz, or particularly at home to Malmo, that's the performance you expected from Forest on that day. They got bullied on that day by Malmo, by Midtjylland, but they bullied Malmo yesterday. And it was just exactly what I wanted. I think 3-0 was perfect for me.
Yeah, you're right, though. They didn't have one single touch in the Forest box throughout the whole game, which is in itself, then when they struggle to do that, it's going to be a comfortable game defensively. Kate, where did you stand? Were you hoping Forest pressed more, or ultimately in the same camp as George, that you were happy with a 3-0 and almost importantly coming out unscathed as well?
So the clean sheet was brilliant. I would much rather have a clean sheet than more goals in some respects, just because I think that's really important for us as a team, for confidence, for moving forward, for John. Confidence and John, same sentence there. Okay.
That's rare.
It is, isn't it? It is. That's why I wanted to just highlight that. I would say that after the third goal went in and then there was the triple change, and that was such a strong change as well in bringing those three on, I expected 4. I did. I thought, okay, the fourth one's, going to happen now with I thought that was why he'd done it, brought those 3 on. It didn't come to fruition. It didn't really matter. We won 3-0. 3-0. It was great. So, yeah, I did think maybe 4. I'm not disappointed at all.
Yeah, I'm certainly in the camp where, first of all, the 3 points was a must. They got that. The second thing was the clean sheet. They got that. They did score 3 goals, which is a boost to the goal difference. It's not easy to win 3-0 in Europe, so you've got to take that. Where do you stand, Molo? Were you happy with the final score and the performance? Because we met at half-time, didn't we? And we were quite happy at 2-0. They did take a while to break them down, though, as George said.
Yeah, but I think you look at it from there's 2 or 3 perspectives, isn't there? First of all, before the game, would you have taken 3, regardless of performance? 100%. Secondly, the nature of the game, we battered them. And like Kate says, I actually thought, and we said at the time, he brought on the subs towards the end just to make sure he closed the game out with no dramas and no conceding, because we coasted in that last half hour or 20 minutes, didn't we? And we created 1 or 2 half chances. It says a lot as well. Their best player by an absolute mile was their keeper, wasn't he? He made a couple of really good saves. They defended as best they could and they were outclassed and whatnot. I think the other aspect that's really important is if you could, like Sean Dyche's team rather than us, could write down how many minutes he wanted in each player's legs, it was perfect. He brought players off that are presumably going to be starting on Sunday. He brought players on to give them 20 minutes in their legs. Nico Williams, the sort of character is, the sort of player he is. He went on there and he was like a bat out of hell, wasn't he? He was brilliant. But it's better doing that than doing a warm down afterwards, isn't it? And I'm thinking, you know what? Every minute of the game went exactly how Sean Dyche would have wanted. Somebody today at work, funny, I said, I thought it was a bit poor. We should have scored goals. We need more goals for the goal difference. Well, I'm like, well, actually, if we're relying on goal difference with the games we've got left, we've only got ourselves to blame. Just get the points on the board. I think it was, in boxing parlance, it was almost punch perfect in many, many ways.
You're right. If Sean Dyche had taken that before the game, coming out with a comfortable performance, an easy performance, 3-0 win, no significant injuries, although Murillo seemed to pick up a bit of a knock. He'd have taken that, wouldn't he? As well as resting 7 first 11 players who are likely to return for the weekend's game against Brighton. He'd have taken that, wouldn't he?
You'd think so. I mean, well, the Murillo thing we'll find out, but Murillo often looks injured. I don't mean always looks injured. He often seems to have a bit of a limp, and then he'll suddenly burst out and do something. So I'm going to take that with a pinch of salt anyway. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Murillo will be starting back in his normal position on Sunday. And I genuinely, like you say, I think Sean Dyche, it was massively positive in so many different ways. Another 3-0 win, first the Scousers, and now a European game. Perfect few days.
I do want to talk on the goal difference thing. It can't be that bad. I've not actually looked at the table, but our defeat was only by 1 goal. We've won 2-0, we've won 3-0. Our goal difference can't be that bad for people to be negative about it, can it?
No, the goal difference is +4. They've scored 4, conceded 5, so they've got +4 goal difference.
I mean, Premier League, maybe people are confusing it because I don't think that's very good. But in the Europa League, I think it's
been a few hammerings, though, haven't there? With weird results like 5s and 6s knocking around in this year in the Europa, because obviously you don't play everyone. It's depending on who you play. That's all. I mean, I just can't. If it comes down to goal difference, it's our fault, isn't it?
To put it into perspective, had Gibbs-White scored that penalty in Graz, Forest would be currently sat in 7th position in the table as opposed to 16th, with the +5 goal difference. And below them, immediately, there is nobody else with a +5 goal difference at all in the whole table, actually, other than the top 5 teams.
And I just think that proves how important winning is in the Europa League, isn't it? I think it's all about winning, because 3 points puts you in 7th. Do you know what I mean? So I think the result is the paramount thing.
Yeah. You mentioned Murillo there, Mollo, and I do want to talk about him because we saw a tactical change, didn't we, where he played at left back. What do you think was the rationale behind that? Because it would have been so easy to put Morato there because he's played there before, notably at Arsenal, where, albeit he did struggle. What was the rationale, do you think, around Murillo playing at left back yesterday?
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Introducing Oakley Meta Vanguard, the new performance AI glasses designed for athletes. With hands-free capture on an action-ready ultra-wide camera, powerful open-ear speakers, and built-in Meta AI that syncs with your Garmin devices for real-time insights while you train. Take your performance to the next level with Oakley Meta Vanguard. Athletic intelligence is here. Learn more on meta.com.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it guaranteed or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Me, sorry.
Yeah, it was you, yeah.
I think it was as round a pegs as possible in round holes, because Morato was absolutely superb. Didn't have to be any better than it was, or perhaps being superb's being generous, but he did absolutely everything right. Morato is a very solid, steady centre-back, and he's not going to get done through the middle the way he can get done out wide on the turn, whereas Murillo has this incredible acceleration over a few yards. And what was interesting, every Forest fan in the ground was the same, watching him go forward, thinking, is he going to be Stuart Pearce-esque at some point? And without a shadow of a doubt, he could be an international left back, but he's a world-class centre-back potentially. And I think the thinking behind it was making sure you've got round pegs in round holes, a lack of choice at left back at the moment elsewhere. Murillo was perhaps, he's younger, maybe a bit fitter, and Kate alluded to it, I think, in the last pod. how many minutes Nico's played. So to share it the way they did, 60-30 I think it was roughly, or 65-25 I think, was very, very sensible, because two of our absolute key players at the back not playing the full game, who were both energetic. So I thought it was a very wise choice, and it kind of keeps him out of trouble a little bit, if that makes sense, in the middle there. He's less likely to get injured. But it worked, didn't it?
It did. I mean, I liked it from the perspective of that we know how good his left foot is. We've seen that when he's delivered crosses to Hutchinson, which he did against Leeds, George, and he did against Liverpool, actually, in the run-up to that third goal. And putting him out left still makes use of that left foot, because it's a bit like a one, but it changes the angle a little bit, doesn't it, as opposed to pinging it out from the centre. So I just wondered if that was an element of a tactical thing, to try and get those crosses in, because you've got Hudson-Odoi on that side who uses his right foot more, and I wondered if that was a thing. What do you think, George, for Murillo to use the equivalent thing from that side with his left?
Yeah, I think, to be fair, the one fault I had with it was his balls in. When he got in that left side, past his man, his crosses weren't brilliant. And I think you saw Nico Williams, why, even on his weak foot, I think was a big strength there. But I think it was just like, let's give Murillo his game to be himself, He's always wanted to be a bit erratic and lose responsibility. Well, this was his chance to do it. At one point, he got the ball and dribbled to the right wing, and he was stood there with Dominguez and Abbott on the right wing, and then sprints back, It was just like, go on, have your game, lads. We've always wanted to do it. Just do it. And as well, I thought Callum Hudson-Odoi's free kick when Murillo's lurking there and he puts it straight into the wall, I think Callum ran as quickly as he could, because Murillo is just lurking at him like, why have you not let me take that? But he's just a spectacular player, like you say. I think you could put him in holding midfield. You could put him up front and he'd probably do a job. He's just a phenomenal player, and we're so lucky to have him. And we were told in the January after he made his debut, you won't keep hold of him. Well, we've kept hold of him for 18 months now, longer than we maybe thought. I think we've got to enjoy every minute he plays, and it may not be his last season anyway.
Yeah, to be fair to Hudson-Odoi, though, on that free kick, I was right behind it, and I could see why Hudson-Odoi took that free kick, because had he put it the other side, he easily could have bent it into that far corner. I don't know why he didn't try that. Murillo with the left foot to score from that angle would have been an absolute Stuart Pearce-esque type goal from there, or, sorry, I should say a Roberto Carlos type goal from there, but it wasn't meant to be. Another player I wanted to talk about, Kate, was Kali Muendo, because he's a player that we've not seen a lot play. Obviously, he played at Graz and ran his socks off before being substituted towards the end. But what will that give him, having scored? He must give him such a confidence boost now that he's got off the ground with a goal. Do you think he can take this forward into the Premier League, or do you think it will take some time for him to find his feet in that league, as opposed to only playing in the Europa League?
I'm not altogether sure that he'll get the opportunity to take it forward in the Premier League. I think it's by far the best we've seen him play. I think he was unlucky. He had a great shot saved, one of the good saves that the keeper made before he scored his goal. I do think he worked hard and he did impress in yesterday's game. I don't think that makes him a starter on Sunday. I think that would be a mistake. But it's absolutely progress. And the best thing about when he scored that goal was the way the players came over to him and celebrated with him and absolutely bigged him up. And that was, again, an example of what magnificent team spirit we now have. And again, it harks back to the team, Dyche and Stone and Wone. And for me, that was such a lovely moment to see everybody saying, yes, here we go, we're off the mark, well done. And so yeah, I'm not taking anything away from his performance in saying that. I do think he was good. He was a lot better than we saw him in Graz. And so yes, absolutely positive, confidence boost. Still a bit to do though, I think.
Yeah, I agree. For now, I think he's more often than not going to be an impact player off the bench, I think. And I don't know what you guys think, Molo and George. Do you think that he offers something different, doesn't he? He's a different style of player. He's somebody who likes to drop deep, receive the ball, or run into the channels. Very different to Jesus or Chris Wood or Awoniyi for that matter. Do you agree with the opportunities would be dependent on the type of game or the type of opponent, I should say, that they're facing, or do you think it's kind of a mixture of form, opponent, availability, depending on the situation? Start with you, George.
Yeah, I think there is a pecking order, and there's always quite a clear pecking order with strikers. I think it's not as clear now with Wood coming back, but Wood and Jesus are your two strikers that you use time in, time out, and then if you need an option last minute off the bench or one of them's injured, Callum Wendo's your third choice. I don't think that'll change, but strikers are funny animals, you know. How often do you see it that a striker can't score for 20 games, they get one, and then suddenly they score in like 6 in a row? You don't know if he's that type of player, and he might be. And what I loved as well is what Kate said about the team reaction. He's painted an isolated and dejected figure at times. I think there was a bench cam that a lot of people were talking about where he sort of felt a bit cut adrift from the team. Yeah, he scored that, and like you say, everybody in a red shirt, or all red as we mentioned, ran straight to him, and it was just so lovely to see that they're all behind him, somebody that's not had the game time that he wants and hasn't performed in the way we maybe expected him to, but he's on the journey with us, he's one of us, and I just really loved that element of it. So yeah, I think his game time will be limited, and if he gets chances, he's got to take it. Like, you know, Chris Wood or Jesus would have been playing one Saturday, one Thursday if they were both fit, but he had the chance to play, he took it, and if he's got that mentality of being a loved player and the confidence now, then you don't know what he can do.
100%. You've kind of nailed it. I think, like you say, strikers are funny animals, as the two on this side of the screen both know. But I think a month ago, and after Sturm Graz, he was struggling to get a place on the bench after that performance, if we're being brutally honest. And I know he didn't have a great deal to work off on the service that day, but his movement was horrendous. He didn't hold the ball up, and I said at the time, there's no way he's that bad a player. You know, even though the French league's rubbish, Graz are no better than a team in the French league. There's no way he's that bad a player. Just striker and centre mid are the two hardest positions to drop straight into a team after being out in the cold. I thought he was absolutely superb last night in the circumstances. I was watching, as you know, Simon, you get the best view in the ground from A Block now, and I was watching his movement when we had the ball and we were attacking, and the way he was peeling off as well to find space, which he hadn't done in Graz. It wasn't just basic running. You wonder, has the coaching team been in his ear and built him up and said, look, you've got to do the obvious stuff that you were obviously doing last year when you were scoring goals. But what he's done is put himself in a conversation to be an important person coming off the bench. And as Amari Hutchinson has recently shown, you do your job off the bench, and then the conversation is, should you be starting soon? So I genuinely feel he needs to look at what Amari Hutchinson's done, having been out in the cold, and try and follow that path. Because from our point of view, of course, Jesus and Wood and Taiwo, who's been outstanding and when he's been on the pitch recently this season, you look at them, and that's not a bad setup, but he's got to start asking questions and rattling the cage. And he's started that process last night. I was really, really pleased with him. And I'm sure you're going to talk about it soon, but I'll wait, because at some point we have to talk about Ryan Yates.
Let's talk about Ryan Yates right now then, Mollo. Why not?
Have you ever seen... I know you can talk about the opposition, you can talk about other players. Have you ever seen Ryan Yates, for all the things we know he's good at and how he's a very much better footballer than people say, dictate the pace of a game the way he did last night? It was fantastic. I was so pleased for him that he showed, all now at Forest fans that say, oh yeah, he's good at this and he can win free kicks and he can upset the opposition. And they forget you don't become a footballer at any kind of level without having a great touch and awareness and all that sort of thing. But last night, he looked like the lad who played at the academy probably 20, how many years it was ago. He dictated the pace of that game. He's given a real, genuine food for thought to the management team. And if he's on the bench on Sunday, he's got good reason to be disappointed, but we know he won't be. He'll be right there behind him. And I've always liked Ryan Yates. I've always rated him. I've always said he's a much better player than people give him credit for, but I've never seen him completely dictate the pace of a game like he did yesterday. It was so pleased for him. Man of the match by a mile. Sorry to get that in early.
Yeah, no, I was going to do the same, Mollo. He was clearly man of the match for me as well. And he scored a great goal as well, didn't he, Kate?
Yeah. Sorry.
He scored a great goal and he got 2 assists.
Yeah.
So we got 3 goals and he got 2 assists and one of the goals. I mean, that's incredible. And we have to talk about the stat. I'm so excited to be the one to talk about the stat because I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So he has now scored on every day of the week for Nottingham Forest. If you've not picked up on this on Radio Nottingham or on the social medias today, he is the stat man, isn't he? You can pull out so many different things that Ryan Yates has done or not done or whatever, but this one is absolute quality. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Ryan Yates has scored a goal for Nottingham Forest, and he completed that stat last night by scoring on a Thursday, and I bloody love that for him and for our club. And like you say, there was everything about his game was great last night. He was an absolute joy to watch. And nobody deserves that more than Ryan Yates. He is one of our own. He is, and actually there was other things about, that included Zach Abbott and how good he was in that game, which I hope we will touch on at some point. Our 2 academy boys absolutely flying the Forest flag, and totally my man of the match as well. No argument from me that it can be given to Nico this week. He's Ryan Yates all the way, and I just love that for him.
So, Kate, did you pose us a quiz question earlier in the season about the only player to score in every single division in England and every cup competition? And was that Ryan Yates? Was that the Ryan Yates one that you posed?
Yeah.
And he's now scored in Europe as well. Yeah. Does that count?
Indeed, he has.
But if you take which you can't, his assist and his goal out of the game, he was still by far man of the match. The way he dictated the play in the middle of the pitch.
And really, we should be talking about McAtee on paper as being the person that ran the midfield and being given the opportunity. And, there'd be a lot of people that would be expecting to have that conversation today. And we're not. We're talking about Ryan Yates. And a nod to Sangare as well, actually.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, for me, Yatesy, I think, is man of the match because he won us the game and stuff like that, got in them positions. And there's actually a point where, in the second half, he turned up, looked to his right and sprayed like a 30-yard pass over to Zach Abbott that if Morgan Gibbs-White or Ellie Anderson did, would be getting so much applause and so much credit on social media. But I said to my granddad, if Ibrahim Sangare had runners ahead of him, he'd have been my man of the match. Yates is my man of the match, yes, agreed. But I thought Sangare was phenomenal. And the Yates and Sangare partnership, I've never actually liked it. I think they don't counteract each other's weaknesses for it to work, and it hasn't worked for me. But it was absolutely spot on last night. The way they both took the grasp of the game, and the amount of time Sangare won the ball, drove through the sort of first defence of Malmo, and then looked up, and then there wasn't the runners that maybe if Morgan's playing or if Ndoye's playing and Jesus is playing, he's got. The amount of times that happens, it was very frequent. So for me, Sangare was along with Yates dictating that midfield. Yates took the eye with getting the goal and winning the game and stuff like that. But I really think Sangare was so integral to how we played last night as well.
I'd just love to see him go in and win a 50-50, Sangare, just once.
Yeah, that's the weakness. The weakness is his defending. I think he's slightly counteracted that. And running towards his own goal. If we're getting back on a counter-attack, he can't run towards his own goal, and that's what worries me, and that's why he probably plays a lot better when Anderson's next to him. But I thought it was just awesome last night. And
we could have been talking about a Ryan Yates hat-trick. As Kate said, he got 2 assists. The first assist, obviously, the header, and was a great header, but what an even better save from the goalie. Obviously, fortunately, that we scored the rebound, and then the third goal was obviously a Yates volley at the back post. I mean, Ryan Yates doing a volley. I mean, it's tremendous, wasn't it? So we could easily have been sat here, George, couldn't we, talking about a Ryan Yates hat-trick?
Yeah, like I say, we perhaps should have. And I also think Sangare is important in that as well, because it was Yates today, but the 3 games before it's been Gibbs-White who's got in the box and scored goals, and that's because what Sangare is doing, sitting back, being in that position, maybe as Moller said, he doesn't win a 50-50, but he is there and he gives Yates, Anderson, Gibbs-White that licence to go in the box and score goals. So that's why I think Sangare is further important. And I didn't really used to like Sangare, but I think he's really grown on me. Sorry, I've completely flipped your question back to my narrative. But yeah, Yatesy was fantastic, and I'm one of his biggest cheerleaders as well, and I've always backed him, and I'm so glad that we've got a Nottingham lad leading our football club in Europe. It's so nice to see.
Talking of another Nottingham lad, Jimmy Sinclair came on. I assume he's from Nottingham, having listened to his post-match and in his accent, but he was great to see him on the pitch, and he's about your age, isn't he, George?
I think he's younger, actually. Yeah, when Zach Abbott played, right?
19.
When Zach Abbott made his debut, I think it was Joe Gardner. When Joe Gardner made his debut, I think it was Bristol City in the Cup, if you remember that, a few years ago, right? It was my final, I was holding on to it because he was 8 days older than me. I was like, right, I can still make it. And then Zach Abbott came along and was a year younger than me. I was like, yeah, no, my time's done. So yeah, Zach and Jimmy are a little bit younger than me. And I also, so I'm based in London for university, and Forest played Wealdstone in the National League Cup last month with Warren Joyce and stuff. So me and my mates went down to watch that. And I'm thinking, these guys are like 2 years younger than me, and I'm coming to watch them in a Forest youth game. But yeah, it's just phenomenal. The youth academy with what Gary Brazil used to bring and what Warren Joyce is doing now, it's spectacular. And it's so good for them to see the path. And I think Dyche should take credit as well, particularly for playing Abbott, because we were all impressed by Abbott off the bench at Graz for the 5-6 minutes that he played. He really got himself about, and that could have been it. That could have been like, all right, you've had your time. But no, he stuck with him. He merited his performance. Yes, because we've got Zinchenko out, and that's probably where the opportunity comes. But he's put faith in him, and that's going to give the next generation such confidence that there is a path into the first team, because particularly when we've been in the Premier League, apart from Yates, you've really struggled to see it, I think.
I want to touch on Abbott's performance on that right-hand side, especially in the first half, Kate, because I thought he offered more on that flank than Dominguez did, to be fair. Dominguez generally, I thought, was very quiet yesterday, but Abbott certainly was a bit of an influence on that right-hand side, obviously nearer to you at that time of the game than it was for us. But what were your impressions of Abbott playing at right back?
Yeah, I really enjoyed him. I was pleased to see him on the team sheet. And I do think he's one to watch. I do think that he is going to be somebody that we are potentially talking about in a few seasons' time. The thing that I really liked was I thought his balls in were actually really, really good and really, really accurate, and maybe didn't always suit Callum Owendo's style of play. But what I would love to see is Chris Wood on the end of one of those, because I think that is where some magic could really happen. And great to see that part of his game that I haven't really seen before. And I think that also shows development, because that comes from training with the first team. And when we think back to him coming on in the semi-final as well, we were all talking about that he put on. I think he did all right. We were saying that there was some promise there. But when you look at that performance and you fast forward to this performance, you can see the journey and you can see the improvement in front of your eyes. And yeah, he was very worthy of his place last night, and I really enjoyed him.
And he's not a right back, is he? That's the thing. He's not a right back. He's came from our academy as a centre back, and I went to watch the youth final. And he's good on the ball, but he was the Milenkovic. He's not a right back yet. He's made it work. And Simon, you mentioned Dominguez there. Didn't have his best game yesterday, but we would not have scored that first goal without him, because the ball comes in and it's going out for a throw-in or a goal kick. And Dominguez, credit to his professionalism and what he's about, he chased that ball, forced the throw in, and then Sangare used it quick. So Dominguez isn't a winger, he's never really going to be a threat as a winger, but he makes it work and he always makes himself have an impact.
Holds up a side for me, Dominguez, and gives the likes of whoever's right back the chance to overlap. And George has said exactly what I was going to say. The word in the academy over the last few years is watch out for this lad. It was a centre. What Zach Abbott needs more than anything in the world right now is a final growth spurt, and he will be a top centre-back. Or he's now kind of recreating himself as a bit of a nuts and bolts right-back, because he, unless you're Murillo, and there's only one Murillo and very few of them in world football, to be under 6 foot or around 6 foot, you've got to be very, very good to be a centre-back. So he needs that little growth spurt, and he could. And he's still young enough. He's got another a year or so until growth officially ends. Mine stopped when I was about 13, but for him, hopefully, he's got another year. Because a couple sounds so silly, but a couple more inches in height, or he becomes, and someone's probably thinking this already, the kind of Gary Neville centre-back converted to right-back who then learns the game because he's such an intelligent footballer. You obviously saw him as well playing the youth team, George. And there's never any doubt he was going to play for the first team at some point, was there? Ever. No.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to tell you that Michelob Ultra, the official beer partner of the NBA, is bringing NBA fans closer than ever this season with chances to win great prizes, including courtside tickets. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Courtside 25 to 26. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 plus. Begins on October 1st, 2025 and ends on June 30th, 2026. Multiple entry periods. See official rules at MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant. naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
No one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com /purple to learn more.
No, not at all. And you're giving me hope I can still grow, so thanks for that.
Yeah, mono and the word grow in the same sentence doesn't happen very often, does it? But
no, I'm just worried. I'm feeling like if George thinks his chance has gone to make it, what chance have we got?
Yeah. But just on Zach Abbott, it's nice for Sean Dyche to see what he can do, because we go back to this proud record of having a homegrown talent named in every single squad for since the year dot, really. I don't even know how many days or years it's at now, but there is going to potentially come a time where Ryan Yates might get injured or suspended this season, and Zach Abbott and maybe now Jimmy Sinclair are the only ones who are in position to maintain that record, and it's a proud record. I know Nuno did it last year when Yates got suspended. He made sure Zach Abbott was on the bench, and I'd like to think that Sean Dyche has seen enough of Zach Abbott now to think the same, because there have been a few Premier League squads where he's not even made the bench lately, so hopefully that performance last night will solidify at least a place on the bench for the foreseeable.
I did have a little bit of a maternal moment when Sinclair got booked. I was like that. How very dare you book the small boy? That is unkind. But, you know, at the same time, he's probably like that. Yeah, I've got a yellow card, so it's fine.
And how good
and
was
final
it
word
that he
on
came off the
Jimmy
bench
Sinclair,
and was like,
then.
I'm going to get myself involved. Sorry, I think my Wi-Fi's
that's what I wanted.
a bit. But yeah, how good was it that he did that? Because he could have came on 6 minutes and just sort of gone a bit missing because the game was won. He didn't really have to have an impact, but he wanted to get stuck in there. He wanted to go and win that ball, and I just love that. And that's the mentality that comes from being in the youth academy. So it was phenomenal to see that.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Molo about that, especially before we move on, because he obviously played mostly down that right flank, didn't he, where we were, and what were your early impressions of him? Because, like George said, he was quite sprightly, did get booked chasing back, so he didn't shirk his defensive responsibilities. But what did you make of him in his cameo role?
Yeah, what you've got to say, he'll have come off that pitch absolutely knackered, because he was like a kid in a sweet shop, running everywhere. And the phrase that springs to mind, not to be unkind, was headless chicken. You know, and that's completely understandable. Coming on the pitch with 6 minutes to go, and he never stopped trying to run, to whether it be to make space. It tended to be he was trying to get on the ball, trying to get in behind, and he's quite quick, I believe. I saw him on TV. Obviously, didn't go to that pre-season kickabout, but the potential's obviously there. We can't read too much into it, apart from he's been blooded now. So next time he goes on a pitch, he'll be thinking, right, I might think a bit more about what's been coached into about finding space by sometimes it's best to stand still than to move, all that kind of stuff. Because he wasn't making angles at times, was he? And he was just so enthusiastic, and I loved it. And the chasing back, I thought summed him up. I thought, brilliant. He's still just going to sprint back, having sprinted forward about 10 times in the last 30 seconds. So you love to see it. And I hope one of them makes it. There are a couple of lads in the academy now that look like they've got a chance, and we look like we've got a forward player as well that's technically academy. So hopefully, if Yates gets injured or Abbott gets injured or whatever, in the next 2 or 3 years, hopefully there is our next batch, because it's so much harder now. And it may be McConnell who's absolutely bossing it at Mansfield. Is he going to make the Premier League? Who knows? But he's good enough to be playing professional football for 2 years now. So you never know. You just never know, do you? And somebody will come through, I hope.
Just before we move on to Molo's moment, Kate, you wanted to talk about the Malmo fans, I believe. What were your thoughts around them? And your eyes are rolling, so tell me more.
So, from where I was, they just looked mad. In a good way, singing throughout, clap, 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 didn't care about the score, totally just living their best lives and loving being there. which I did really enjoy, and I'm not taking any of that away from them. But on the Garibaldi Girls chat today, I have learned that there were some issues pre-match with them, and they weren't great. So throwing Coke and beer over the home fans, throwing bottles as sort of missiles again towards the home fans or onto the pitch, and a little bit of shoving around the stewards as they were trying to deal with that as well, which is the flip side, isn't it? So you can see them singing away, and we love that because we do that, and you got to respect it. So it was a bit disappointing to hear that had happened. And you know, kudos to the club for getting on top of it, and I don't believe any of it spilled into the match, and it was very much for the people that had got there early and were trying to enjoy that pre-match stuff with all the legends and all of that. But just a bit of a shame, really, to see that kind of behaviour from them. But the flip side of that is the club did seem to get on top of it and managed it well, and then they went on to support their team in a very, very positive way.
Was that the supporters in the Lower Bridgeford, or was that the group in at the back of the Peter Taylor stand, which, as we know, are part of UEFA regulations? They have to have a group there. Which one was it? Was it the Lower Bridgeford one?
It seemed to be Lower Bridgeford from what I was reading in the chat. And like I say, I'm speaking about this not as something that I saw, because I would have been far too far away to be able to see that. But there were quite a lot of people talking about it, and I do believe there have been some videos released, which I haven't seen, that are doing the rounds on social media. So it did happen.
Okay.
There's more than just pushing and shoving as well with the stewards.
Right.
But who knows what caused it. The rumour is there was a bit of a punch-up in their end. Sounds familiar in a European away game. But the stewards went in to rescue some guy who was getting a pummelling, I presume a Malmo fan.
That's what I saw.
As they pulled him out, it escalated, and they were just getting stuck in. There was one particular steward who pulled the guy out, and he looked like a middleweight boxer the way he was built, and he threw hands more than pushing and shoving and made sure they stepped back. But I don't feel that's the steward's role, to be honest. We've all been to Brentford in the past and seen what can happen. It was a police matter, and I think apparently before the game the same thing happened outside the ground with the police, and the police just drew their batons and made sure they went where they were supposed to go without any more arguing. And I think the stewards were put in a position there that they shouldn't really have been in, and then some have retaliated, which might be human nature for some people, but probably wasn't the right way to go. But I wasn't even aware of it till after the game when I saw all the footage flying around. Didn't spoil the night for anyone else, I don't think.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of it yet. One thing I did want to comment on was the Swedish equivalent of the skull chant. Did you see that when the T Block were doing it as well, and some of the Lower Bridgeford? I couldn't work out whether they were joining in or taking a mick or what it was, but there did seem to be that kind of connection, if you like, between the groups at that time. Probably a nice way to call it, but don't know if you guys spotted it from where you were.
I think it was Mickey taking.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we were doing it back, weren't we, as well? Yeah, it was two-way.
Yeah. Right, on to Mollo's moment then. What have you got for us this week, Mollo?
Oh, where'd you start? So many, but I suppose there is only one, isn't there? And it has to be, and you've alluded to it earlier, scored in the National League, scored in League Two, scored in League One, scored in the Championship for Forest, scored in the Premier League for Forest, scored in the FA Cup and Carabao Cup for Forest. Ryan Yates has now got the lot until we get into the Champions League, of course. He's now scored in Europe for Forest. We didn't just celebrate. When we were jumping up and going nuts, it was like, yeah, it's Yates, not just the usual. I think you can't beat that, can you? Nothing's topping that in that game.
Good choice. Just to round off the Europa League stuff then, Forest currently sit in 16th place on 8 points, and I was reading some nice comments from a nice summary from Red Side of the Trent podcast today, who indicated that 24-25 last season, if you'd have got 11 points, that would have got you into at least the playoffs. So they're well on track for that, I think. If the playoffs were today, they would be playing either Bologna, or it must stand for something, but the PAOK team, however you pronounce that, I've absolutely no idea. Pardon?
PAOK Athens, isn't it?
I'm not sure. In the league table, they're just down as PAOK. I don't know what that's an acronym, an abbreviation for, but Forest will play one of those two teams if the table ended today. So,
can I make a plea? If you're listening, Sean Dyche players, please finish in the top 8. My bank account cannot take these kind of hammerings. Please. And draw Lille as well. It's a nice, easy trip.
Yeah. So it's you. No, Lyon are top.
Lyon, okay.
I've been there. I don't want to go back there.
Lille are actually 11th at the minute, so not too far away. But if Forest are playing Utrecht in the next game in a couple of weeks, and they are 32nd, so very similar level to what Malmo are or were. They're actually only one point out of all their games so far. So you'd like to think, all things being equal, Forest should go there with a bit of confidence that they can get a result, and if they can do that, they're well on the way to qualification and have the top 8 in their sights. So we shall see.
Pretty sure that point was against Porto, though. I know we beat them, but Porto are a top team, so they've got to go there and take them seriously.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, as I said earlier, there's no easy games in Europe, and the Hungarian team that Forest play to round off their league campaign or the group stages are actually in 6th spot right now, and they're undefeated. So that's not going to be an easy game if Forest need to win to qualify or get in the top 8. So it's important they do get a result against Utrecht, and then Braga following that, Kate, which coincides with your birthday. Is that right? Around then?
Birthday to me? Yeah, it is. They play on my birthday. So yeah. Let's hope that's a good thing.
Right, very quickly then, as we're ahead of time, let's talk about Brighton and some early thoughts. They're currently sat in reasonably good 6th position in the league, having only lost one of the last 6. It's not going to be the same as it was last year where it was 7-0. That we can pretty much guarantee. But what are your guys' early thoughts in terms of a team selection? Will the 7 come back? Is that an automatic thing for you, George? Those that didn't play the full 90 yesterday, will you bring them all back against Brighton?
Yeah, I think the one thing you might do is play 2 conventional wingers, whether that's Hutchinson or whether that's Callum Hudson-Odoi along with Dan N'Doye. But apart from that, there's no reason to change from the Liverpool side. Obviously, Forest have won 3-0 away at Liverpool and then in Europe back-to-back. I mean, that's something the Miracle Men never did. But you've got to go back to your Premier League 11, to your strongest 11, and I don't think there's any reason really to change it, apart from at home being that more attacking, more direct with 2 wingers. I'd like to see it to be Hutchinson, to be fair, based on the fact of his impact at Anfield, his impact against Leeds, and give him his first sort of Premier League start and see what he can do. And I think Forest, they've got to be at it straight away, because Brighton, the high energy side they are, they can catch you out. But Forest did the opposite last year, in that they scored early off Lewis Dunk, and that gave them confidence. I think if they come out straight away and they're ready for the challenge, they don't have to take on Brighton. They've just got to be ready for it. And if so, I think we can be reasonably confident. And it's weird, like you say, Brighton is 6th in the league, yet I think a lot of people are quite confident Forest can do a job on them.
Yeah, Molo, you mentioned a couple of podcasts ago that a home game would be the ideal time to introduce Hutchinson into the starting 11, and that Liverpool was not the right time to do that. Have you changed your mind? Would you like to see Hutchinson start against Brighton this weekend?
Well, you know what I'm like. I start worrying about the opposition a bit too much, but I kind of noticed every season at this point in the season, Brighton are about 5th, 6th or 7th. They're so consistent at the start of the season. I think we have to go solid to start with, even if it's just 50, 60 minutes. I think he brought Dominguez off for that reason. I think Dominguez gives us that solidity to make sure we don't get outnumbered in midfield at any point. But Amari Hutchinson has certainly put his hand up, hasn't he, for consideration. I really like him. What we've seen of him just at Forest, I wasn't sure about him at Ipswich, where I thought his best games were always as a number 10, where he did look good. But I really like him. I think he's someone with feet that quick. I know he's not the quickest in the world, but someone with feet that quick who can drop a shoulder and leave his man for dead like that. And he's got a sweet left foot as well, hasn't he? I'll let whatever Sean Dyche decides, I'll be happy with. But he's definitely knocking down the door in the right way, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Kate, Yates in or not?
I think it has to depend a little bit on who's available. There are some injury queries, aren't there? That's a really difficult question for me to answer. I mean, I'm of the school of thought, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. So potentially stick with the starting 11 from Liverpool. But I certainly wouldn't be sad or worried if I saw his name on the starting team sheet. What I would say is that I too am feeling reasonably confident that we can get a good result on Sunday against Brighton. And, you know, when I was looking back at you know, the 7-0, we are back in form. And I think Brighton look at this game as an upcoming fixture a few weeks ago, and they're suddenly feeling a lot more confident and feeling like they can come and get some revenge for last season. And I don't think they will be thinking that now. I think they will be more concerned about what may or may not happen. And I also want to say that when Dyche first came into the conversation as coming here and taking over as our manager, I probably wasn't. In fact, I think I did a stream with you, George, where I was like, oh no, I'm not sure about Dyche. I don't think it's the right time. I was believing all the stuff that we were being told, that it was going to be boring, it was going to be gritty, it was going to be counter-attacking, it was going to be grinding out 1-0s here and there. We've scored 13 goals since Dyche came in. I am not bored. I'm having a great time. I was absolutely wrong about that. And I think what he has done for our team in this short space of time gives us a real chance of getting a great result on Sunday. And whoever is on that team sheet, I am there for it, and bring it on.
And
the way that Dyche
has had impact, it proves, you know, all the media and particularly Carragher going, oh, you can't judge Postecoglou after 8 games. Dyche has played one game less than that, and Forest are far better under him than we ever were under Ange. So that just proves Carragher and tells him that he needs to shut up. Sorry, Marlo.
No, I was going to say, I think the lesson here is some people from before he was appointed said he would be a good fit, and just listen to Mollo. I told you how it would turn out.
Right, that's a good point to draw things to a close just before we go. Any other business, Kate?
No other business from me today.
Okay, Mollo, anything from you?
No, all good.
Right, final word from you, George. Anything from you you'd like to bring up? Would you like to promote any articles or any social media or your Fanalysis? Now's a good opportunity to do that.
So you can, I'm part of Fanalysis, which I'm sure has been spoken about on this pod before. I do articles for the Famous Club. I do a podcast for the 1865 Forest podcast. And I'm on Twitter at GeorgeEdwards05 without 2 E's. But hopefully I'll be a regular voice on the pod, and I'll see you guys again. And thanks very much for having me.
Absolute pleasure, George. You're more than welcome to come on any time. Final thing from me, a couple of things. Sean Dyche mentioned in his post-match interview that John Robertson is unfortunately poorly at the moment, so we wish him well, of course. And the final thing from me as well is I hope all of our American listeners, and there are a few that we know of, have had a really, really good Thanksgiving. So I hope you're all full of turkey. But in the meantime, that's it from us this week. We shall return next week with a review of Brighton and look forward to a trip to Wolverhampton. So thanks again for listening, and bye for now.
Is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.